I smoothed down my simple black dress, a carefully chosen Armani that my stepfamily would mistake for department store clearance. As I walked into the Harrison family's monthly dinner, the massive Victorian mansion loomed before me, its perfectly manicured gardens hiding the truth about who really owned this piece of prime real estate. "Oh, Amanda's here," my stepsister Bethy's voice dripped with condescension. "Did you come through the service entrance like we asked?" I bit back a smile thinking about the property deeds safely stored in my office safe. Harrison House, as they called it, had been mine for the past 3 years. They just didn't know it yet. "Sorry, I forgot," I said quietly, playing the role they'd assigned me since my father's death 5 years ago. The meek stepdaughter who worked as a property manager at some insignificant real estate office. If only they knew that Anderson Real Estate Holdings, my company, now controlled over $3 billion in premium properties across the city, including this house, their offices, and most of their favorite social clubs. "Well, try to remember next time," my stepmother Victoria sniffed, adjusting her obviously new diamond necklace. "The neighbors might see me." The neighbors already knew who I was. As their landlord, I'd approved all their lease renewals personally. Inside, the usual scene played out. My stepbrother Marcus bragging about his latest real estate empire, 3 small office buildings that actually belonged to one of my shell companies. Bethy showing off photos of her new penthouse apartment, unaware that I owned the entire building. "Amanda, darling," Victoria called out, "be a dear and help the staff with dinner service. You're so good at domestic things." I caught the housekeeper Maria's eye. She knew exactly who signed her paychecks, but like all my employees, she understood the importance of discretion. "Of course, Victoria," I replied, heading toward the kitchen. On my way, I checked my phone. An alert from my assistant. "Eviction notices prepared. Waiting for your signal." Perfect timing. "Did you hear about the Wellington building?" Marcus announced as I returned. "Prime downtown location. I'm thinking of acquiring it for my portfolio." I suppressed a laugh. The Wellington building was already mine. Purchased last month through one of my holding companies. In fact, Marcus's office lease there was up for review next week. "How ambitious," Victoria said, clearly doubtful of her son's capabilities. "But real estate at that level requires certain connections. Connections some of us actually have," Bethy added, smirking in my direction, "unlike others who just manage rental properties." If only they knew that my rental properties included half the luxury buildings in the city, whose leases I controlled, and that their social status depended entirely on my holdings. "Speaking of properties," Marcus continued, "did you hear about Harrison House? Apparently it was sold 3 years ago to some mysterious investor. Father's old business partner mentioned it at the club." Victoria waved dismissively. "Nonsense. We'd know if our house had been sold. We have an ironclad lease." Actually, I couldn't resist chiming in. "The property did change hands. The records are public." I watched their faces. Real estate is my job after all. Managing rentals is hardly the same as owning. "Let the adults handle the serious business," Marcus scoffed. I thought about the stack of documents waiting in my office. Lease violations documented over 3 years, neighbor complaints, unauthorized renovations, all ready for the eviction process. "More wine, Amanda," Victoria commanded. "And do try not to spill this time. These tablecloths cost more than you make in a month." Actually, the tablecloths were mine too. Everything in Harrison House belonged to me, purchased through the holding company that owned the property. They'd been living in my house, using my furniture while treating me like their servant. My phone buzzed again, another message from my assistant. "Law firm confirms all paperwork is in order. Ready when you are." I looked around the dining room, taking in the antique furnishings my father had collected. After his death, Victoria had claimed everything was hers, forcing me out of my childhood home. She never knew I'd spent the next 3 years quietly building my real estate empire, waiting for the perfect moment to reclaim what was mine. "Amanda." Bethy's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. "Are you deaf?" Mother asked for wine. "Of course," I replied, reaching for the bottle. "Wouldn't want to forget my place." "As if you could," she laughed. "You're basically our maid anyway. Might as well make it official." The words hung in the air as I poured the wine, each drop bringing me closer to the moment I'd planned for years. Soon they'd learn who truly owned Harrison House. Soon they'd understand what real power looked like. Nothing like their gaudy displays of borrowed wealth. "Oh, Amanda," Victoria called out as I finished pouring the wine. While you're being so helpful, we need to discuss your presence at the Winterton Club Gala next week. I paused, already knowing where this was heading. The Winterton Club, another property in my portfolio, though they have no idea, I thought. We don't think it's appropriate for you to attend, Bethy said, examining her manicure. It's for members only and well, you're not exactly Winterton material. I suppressed a smile, recalling the membership committee meeting I'd chaired last month. As the club's owner, I had final say on all memberships, including their pending review. I understand, I said quietly, checking my phone again. A message from my lawyer. Eviction notice is ready. All legal requirements met. Green light when you are. Marcus stretched in his chair, smugness filling the room. Actually, I'm meeting with the Winterton owner next week about some development opportunities. Very exclusive, very confidential. Oh, he wasn't. I'd never approved any such meeting, but I let him boast for now. Speaking of developments, Victoria interjected, we're planning some renovations to the house. Nothing major, just knocking down a few walls, adding a conservatory. I watched her outline changes to my property. Renovations that would violate both building codes and their lease agreement, which they'd never actually read. That sounds extensive, I ventured. Did you check with the owner? Bethy laughed sharply. Oh please. As if we need permission to improve our own home. This mysterious owner clearly doesn't care what we do. Probably some overseas investor who's never even seen the property. Just then the doorbell rang, right on schedule. Amanda, get that, Victoria commanded. The staff is busy with dinner. I stood, smoothing my designer dress. Of course I wouldn't want to disturb the natural order of things. Walking to the door, I could hear them continuing their conversation, mocking my servant status if only they knew who was about to serve them. I opened the door to find my lawyer, Thomas, holding a thick envelope. He winked at me, playing his part perfectly. Delivery for the residents of Harrison House, he announced loudly enough for the dining room to hear. What is it? Victoria called out, irritation clear in her voice. I returned to the dining room, envelope in hand. It appears to be legal documents. Well, open it, Marcus demanded. Probably just some paperwork about the renovations. I carefully opened the envelope, though I knew exactly what it contained. 3 years of planning had led to this moment. It's an eviction notice, I said slowly, watching their faces. Effective immediately. All residents must vacate the premises within 30 days due to multiple lease violations. The silence that followed was deafening. That's impossible, Victoria whispered, her face pale. There must be some mistake. No mistake, I replied, laying out the documents. The owner is exercising their right to terminate your tenancy. All the violations are documented. Unauthorized renovations, noise complaints, misuse of property. But who is this owner? Bethany demanded, grabbing the papers. Some faceless corporation can't just throw us out. Actually, I straightened up, dropping my submissive pose. Anderson Real Estate Holdings can, and I can. You, Marcus, I said, smiling, though there was a flicker of fear in his eyes. Laughed, but there was fear in his eyes. What are you talking about? He asked, pulling out his phone and displaying the property deed. I bought Harrison House 3 years ago, right after you forced me out, along with most of the properties you all love to brag about. The color drained from Victoria's face. That's not possible. You're just a property manager. No, I corrected her, my voice firm. I'm the CEO and owner of Anderson Real Estate Holdings, your landlord, your club owner, and the person who's been watching you violate every term of your lease for the past 3 years. The room erupted in chaos. Marcus lunged for the documents. Bethany started crying and Victoria sat frozen, her perfect world crumbling around her. You can't do this to us, she whispered. We're family. I looked at her, remembering all the time she treated me like a servant in my own childhood home. Family? Let's talk about family, Victoria. Let's talk about how you treated your late husband's daughter. This is absurd. Marcus stood up, attempting to regain control. You expect us to believe that you, the help, own Anderson Real Estate Holdings? I smiled, pulling up the company profile on my phone and projecting it onto the dining room wall using the hidden smart system I'd installed. Current portfolio, 147 premium properties. Total value, $3.2 billion. And yes, That includes the Wellington building you were so eager to acquire, Marcus. Bethy's mascara was running now. But my penthouse, the Alexandra Tower, owned by my subsidiary. Your lease, by the way, is also up for review. Those unauthorized parties you've been hosting violate several clauses. Victoria finally found her voice. Your father. He left you nothing. We made sure of that, I corrected her. No, I mean it. You thought you made sure of that, but Dad was smarter than you knew. That small property management company you forced me to work for? It was his silent investment that helped me start Anderson Holdings. I walked around the table, touching the antique furnishings they claimed as their own. Everything in this house, every piece of furniture, every painting, every precious family heirloom, legally belongs to me. Has for 3 years. Why? Bethany whispered. Why wait so long to tell us? I paused behind my father's old chair, remembering all the family dinners where they'd relegated me to the kitchen. I wanted you to show everyone who you really are. Every insult, every degradation, every time you treated me like a servant. It's all documented. Perfect evidence for when you tried to challenge the eviction. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm calling our lawyer, Charles Montgomery. I laughed softly. He works for me now. Anderson Holdings acquired his firm last month. But please call him. I'm sure he'd love to explain how ironclad your eviction is. Victoria stood, her composure cracking. What do you want? Money? Position? Name your price. I want you to understand what it feels like, I said quietly. To be treated like nothing in your own home. To watch others claim what's rightfully yours. To smile and serve while plotting their downfall. My phone buzzed again. A message from building security. Security team in position. Ready to escort residents out when needed. You have 30 days to vacate, I continued. Though, given your documented lease violations, I could legally remove you tonight. Tonight. Bethany shrieked. But, where would we go? Perhaps the Winterton Club? I suggested innocently. Oh wait, your memberships were revoked this morning. Something about unpaid dues and inappropriate behavior towards staff. Marcus slumped in his chair. The Wellington building and my office will need new tenants next week. I'm sure you understand, I said. Anderson Holdings has standards for its commercial tenants. Victoria made one last attempt. Amanda, please. We can work something out. We're still family. Family. I cut her off. Like when you made me use the service entrance. When you told the staff I was just another servant. When you erased every trace of my father from this house. I pressed a button on my phone. The house lights dimmed except for a spotlight on my father's portrait. The one they'd hidden in the attic. I'd rehung it that morning waiting for this moment. Dad knew what you were, I continued. That's why he left me the seeds to build all this. He knew I'd need to take back everything you stole, not just the house but our family's legacy. The next hour was a blur of threats, tears, and desperate negotiations. They offered money they didn't have, connections they couldn't maintain, anything to keep their privileged world from collapsing. Your personal belongings will be catalogued and stored, I told them. Everything else, the furniture, artwork, jewelry you claimed was family heritage stays with the house. Its rightful owner. You'll regret this. Marcus threatened weakly. No. No, I smiled. I've enjoyed every minute of watching you dig your own graves. Every unauthorized renovation, every lease violation, every time you treated this house like your own. It's all been leading to this moment. I stood up, straightening my Armani dress. Now I believe you have some packing to do. 30 days isn't very long to dismantle a life built on lies. As they stumbled out of the dining room, shell-shocked and broken, I called after them, "Oh, and Victoria, use the service entrance on your way out. We wouldn't want the neighbors to see you leave in disgrace." Over the next month, Harrison House transformed. The gaudy additions they'd made were removed. My father's collections were restored to their proper places. I watched through security cameras as they packed their personal belongings, designer labels and luxury items looking shabby in cardboard boxes. 1 year later, I sat in my father's old study, my study now, reviewing Anderson Holdings' latest acquisitions. The company had grown to $4.5 billion in assets. Each property a careful investment in both wealth and justice. Victoria and her children had moved to a modest apartment in the suburbs. the only place they could afford without their former connections. Marcus's real estate empire was now a desk job at a small agency. Bethy's social media was quiet, her influencer lifestyle impossible without my properties as backdrops. The doorbell rang and Maria announced a delivery. A letter from Victoria begging once again for understanding, family reconciliation, one more chance. I placed it with the others in a file marked consequences, then returned to my work. The house felt different now, cleansed of their presence. My father's portrait smiled down at me, his wisdom finally vindicated. That evening as I walked through my home, truly mine now, I reflected on power and its many forms. They had chosen obvious displays, clothes, clubs, cruel dominance over those they thought beneath them. But real power, I'd learned, was in the quiet acquisition of control, in the patient wait for perfect justice. I passed the service entrance they'd forced me to use and smiled. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't in evicting your enemies from their home. It's in watching them realize it was never their home at all. And sometimes, the most satisfying moment isn't when you reveal your power. It's in remembering every time they gave you reason to use it. Harrison House stands as a testament to that truth. Every room holds memories of their cruelty and evidence of their fall. But more importantly, it stands as proof that sometimes, the help isn't just helping. Sometimes they're quietly building an empire right under your nose. And sometimes, just sometimes, the person you treat as a servant turns out to own every inch of the ground you stand on. The only question is how long they'll let you stand there before showing you the door, preferably through the service entrance.